Now that is an intro video.
That is quite an intro.
Welcome, everyone. It is so good to be back. I am your co-host, Dana Bentz, and welcome to the StreamYard Spotlight.
Hey, everyone. I'm your co-host, Kelsey, and it's so great to be back. And we have such an awesome guest with amazing energy to pump us up on this Thursday evening.
And she's even pumping us up in the comment section. Let's glow.
I love it. I love it.
Larry, tuning in from Nicaragua. Wow, very cool. Brian, Davo, Del Norte
from Texas.
So cool. Yeah, let us know where you're tuning in from. We love to see where everyone, as our guest says, where everyone's hanging out from. Yeah. I love that.
Hey, Pete. Thanks for being here.
Hey, Pete. Thanks for tuning in. Pete is a previous guest, a legacy guest of StreamYard Spotlight.
As is NLTMW. Hey, Mike.
As is NLTMW. And NLTMW, we had him on the show prior to StreamYard even having the extra camera feature. And he showed us the fancy workarounds. I think he had, 5 cameras or something?
Something like that. Maybe even more. It was crazy. Yeah. It was so cool. You can find his episode in our history if you would like to check it out.
It was really cool, but I'm happy that we actually have the feature built in now.
Me too.
If you haven't seen it yet, go to your StreamYard studio and click the share button. You can play around with adding a second camera angle. But that is not the point of our show today. Today, we get to hear from the lovely Ande Lyons. So I think we should, without further ado, bring her on up. What do you think?
I agree. Let's go.
Hey, Ande.
Hello. Woo. I am so happy to see you all tonight. Hi, everyone tuning in from wherever you glow. I'm so happy to see you, meet you, and share my love for StreamYard with you.
Ande, we are so excited to have you on the show. As some of you may know, we had Ande scheduled for last month's episode, but it was she had a nasty case of was it laryngitis?
Yes,
she lost her voice.
Yeah, I'm sure people in my household were like, "Thank God we get a break." But for me, it was hard.
Of course, and we were super sad as well. But we're feeling so thankful and honored to have been able to postpone Ande to tonight. So thanks again for joining us, and we're so excited to dive into our convo with you today.
Yay! Thank you for having me.
Juan says the show is underway. That is correct.
Yes.
So, Ande, can you walk us through who you are and what your show's all about?
Wow, Ande Lyons here. I've been unemployable since '92. I'm a 4 times founder, a startup champion, and a seasoned podcast and live stream host. And since April 2020, the host of the Startup Life live show, where I amplify diverse founder voices and provide founder journey stories, solutions, strategies, and inspiration to founders around the world. It's an Ande-licious conversation. And we have a great time. It airs every Tuesday and Friday at 12 p.m. ET. And it's a great way to up your founder game while celebrating other founders. And you get to feel less isolated. And I have giveaways, and it's a ton of fun.
Wow, that's so fun. And it's a tongue twister.
Oh my God.
Startup Life Live.
Startup Life Live.
I would get it mixed up. I would say Startup Live Live.
What? Where am I? Who am I?
Ande, you are a live stream OG. I mean, you've been doing content like this since, 2011 or even previous?
Well, I started my first podcast in 2012, and then I went into live streaming in 2013, Google Hangout, folks.
Yes. Back in the day.
From that generation of Google Hangouts, and then we all transitioned into Blab. And what happened, though, and I did hundreds of interviews. I'm an interviewer. That's my favorite way of hosting a show and creating a memorable Ande-licious experience. But Blab and Google Hangout, the technology was so unstable. So at the end of 2017, I said, I'm just going to do podcasting full time.
Got it. And then you said you started Startup Life Live in April of 2020.
Yeah. So here's what happened.
Did that start as a podcast or no?
Well, I had the Startup Life Show podcast. I'd been in it for a couple of years, but what happened was in November of 2018, when the founders of StreamYard, Gage and Dan, launched in beta, I was with a group of folks that were invited to take a look, kick the tires, things like that, right? And I just sort of watched from a distance. And then in 2019, they went live. And so I started to play around with it a little. But then I was a host for 3 years of a monthly startup pitch event in downtown Boston. And we have a very vibrant startup community here in the city. And once a month, we were in there. 5 founders were pitching. We had investors. We had a great crowd. Everything was great. But Boston got shut down for COVID in early March. And I looked at my co-host, AJ, and I said, hey, let's take it online. Let's go virtual. Let's do StreamYard. And of course, he was like, say what?
Yeah.
But we went right on to StreamYard at the end of March. We practiced a few times, got our founders warmed up, and boom, we started having our pitch event. And when I got that lovely feeling of being able to see people and wave and have these great conversations and add value and stay connected, I said to myself, I need to start a show again. I mean, this platform is so delicious, so easy to use. And so, boom. And I have been doing since August of 2020, 2 shows a week.
Wow.
Mostly. Yeah. And so tomorrow will be my 134th episode.
No.
Congratulations. That's huge.
That is huge.
That's huge.
Hey, I can tell anybody out there, consistency is what works when you are doing podcasting or live streaming, because you're building community, you're having a chance to connect with folks. And of course, live streaming, what I love the best about live streaming is when you hit that live button, that's it. When I'm recording something, I'm always editing in my head, but when you go live, you are forced to be in the moment.
Absolutely.
And you're forced to really connect as if you were having coffee with people. Yep. And fortunately, my brain works well enough so that I can also click on all the other buttons and bring people in and do some other Ande Lyons things during the conversation. But it's so great to be able to talk to people. And I tell my founders, let's amplify your brand. And I invite them to put in their business name, their startup's name, the one-liner, and then the URL. And I bring it up and my guest and I cheer it on and wish them luck. But also, representation matters so much in the startup industry. And so if I bring on diverse founders, because if you can see it, you can be it. And it also gives my audience a chance to ask the guests some great questions. Maybe it's a health tech company or an ed tech company or a food manufacturing business, whatever it is, they can come on and get some specific questions that might help their company.
Absolutely.
That's so neat. And the comments, people are so supportive. The landlord advocate says we started our YouTube channel in March. So right around the same time, started doing live shows on StreamYard a few months ago. To reach a larger audience is so rewarding. That's so true.
And on that note, because you brought up, expanding and connecting with your audience, how did both, moving your content through the pandemic, number one, and number two, moving over to StreamYard in April of 2020, how did those two things, change the way you connect with your audience?
Well, I had already been a seasoned host.
Right.
So, but this gave me just a wider reach. And more importantly, StreamYard is so stable, right? And so easy to use that you get comfortable a lot faster. People used to say on Google Hangouts, how do you do it? Aren't you nervous? I go, I'm nervous about the technology. Now it's so much easier to do this. And again, to be able to stay in touch. So I can highlight and spotlight some of the guests who've been on. They swing by to say, hi, Ande. And I go, oh my gosh, hi, Ogie, how's your sneaker business going? Or, hi, Abraham, how's that roofing app happening? Or, hi, Jeanette, and just be able to share the glow and connection. And there's more that I need to do. I mean, it would be ideal if I could bring on community manager, maybe set something up on Mighty Networks and do more of a community aspect and tap in with some accelerators. But for a One Goddess show, it's been going great. And the most important thing, and anybody who's out there, I encourage you to repurpose the content, not just in little video snippets, which I do. I grab the video and I pop it into Fillmore and I grab little sound bites and share those, but I repurpose it into my podcast, Startup Life Show. And I use Spreaker for that. And it's great because now you can reach even more people and add value, and then also bring them back if they want to see, well, who is this chick who's always laughing and having a good time and talking about startups? They can always come and see me too.
Who's the one always blowing up?
Pardon me?
Who's the one that's always glowing up?
Yes. It's always glowing up. Yeah,
I
I'm
love it.
really into the glow. Everywhere you glow, everyone. It's that the
Yeah.
Ande Lyons vibe. But
Yeah.
you know, for my show, it's edutainment. So we're talking about value prop. We're talking about pricing. We're talking about fundraising, raising capital. We're talking about customer acquisition and all the different ratios that you need to know, at the same time laughing, you know, because in the startup world, everybody, one minute you're popping the champagne and the next minute you're crying into it. It's just a fact of life.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I love that you said that you're a one goddess show. Is that what you said? Or a one goddess organization?
Yeah, right now I am, but it's
I love
again,
that.
it's because I've been at it for so long. I have systems and procedures, so it's all a nicely oiled machine.
Right.
And as I bring on sponsors, I look forward to having, you know, the video person to do those snippets for me, right? And
Right.
having Mia Voss. Hi, Mia Voss. So good to see
You know
you.
Mia.
One of my
Live stream.
favorites. She celebrates with me over the holidays. We have a really great 3-hour show
Oh, fun.
together.
Super fun.
Thanks for
Wow.
tuning in, Mia.
Yeah, how fun. So I want to stay on this one goddess aspect of it. Can you talk about how you run the show all by yourself?
Absolutely. Again, folks, I'm really about having templates. So I've got a template for inviting a guest, right? So that email, I just fill in the parts and pieces for them. I have a template for the email I send to them for the show, and that is the links, all the details, the marketing collateral, and questions. I want them to be as comfortable as possible. And then I have a template for the show so that I'm just slipping in there that specific show's details. Then I have a template for the thank you note that I send out afterwards. And I also, you know, the timing on my calendar. This is when I'm posting on IG stories and IG and LinkedIn. And this is when, yeah, so it's all calendared and scheduled so that it becomes this very smooth machine. And I know that a lot of folks don't have their guests do a tech check. I absolutely, unless they're just such a high-powered CEO and getting 5 minutes is too much. And then I just warn their people, because I think it's important in order to share all this great information that we're going to go through, and it's a very deep and meaty conversation. I need to connect with them. I need to make sure they're comfortable with how I be, you know, and the vibe of the show flow. And so unless they're on StreamYard all the time too, and the host themselves, we're going to talk for 10 minutes on StreamYard before we go live. And I do that usually two days before we go live, or 1 day before we go live. And I keep it real short, but we go over, you know, framed in the frame here, you know, how to be centered in the frame, how's the audio, you know, what if we're going to do a giveaway, what that's going to look like, marketing collateral, etc. It's just, and also for me, I really would like it when my guest reboots their device before we go live.
That's a good tip.
I love to hear that you go over all of this with everyone, you know, days in advance, because, you know, a lot of people will say, oh, it's a live show and I want it to be spontaneous, so I'm not going to like go over anything or prepare. But I'm I'm with you where I'm like, I actually think you can accomplish more spontaneity in the moment when the technical elements and the script and the structure of what you're doing is prepared, right? Because then both you and your guest know what's happening. You're on the same page. You don't have to worry about, you know, the spacing or the not being familiar perhaps with the platform, because you've gone over it. So you can really be in the moment with them and do your interview.
It's so good. And of course, it's putting them at ease, because yes, I bring on luminaries, or I bring in seasoned founders and investors or experts, but I also bring in what I call a media preparedness moment for a founder, someone who's has never told their story live on camera, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I also want to make sure that they feel comfortable and that they can bring their best. And I tell everybody I'm unflappable. I've been at this for so long that anything can happen. And I'll be okay. And we will all be okay. And by having the structure, folks, at least a template for how the show is going to flow. And I put the questions out as a framework for our delicious conversation. But yeah, the point is that they're going to say something and I'm going to have a whole pull on threads, and the audience is going to ask questions. And that's where the spontaneity can come and feel really good. And all my guests at the end go, my gosh, that went by so fast. I had so much fun. Is it over already? So that's the best compliment ever.
Oh, that's so fun. We have a question from our audience. Speaking of questions, taking questions live. So first, Landlord just says we use Filmora as well. But Griffo asks, what is Filmora? And how do you use it?
It's a wonderful video editing for complete idiots. So that would be me. And you have really no business. Like it's like on Canva, my graphics person just sets up all the templates on Canva because you don't want Andy touching that.
Oh, that's so
I just
funny.
changed the titles and the faces and the dates.
That's
But
all you need to
Filmora's,
do.
it's great. You can get a lifetime use for under $100, and it's like stupid simple. And so what it allows you to do is to pop your video in. You can take out the snippets. It's easy to cut and then down to what you want. And of course, as you know, 16 seconds for TikTok, 15 seconds for IG stories, 30 seconds for reels on Facebook. You got all these times, right? And you can just export what you need and then shoot it on out and share away. And, you know, people are really busy. So as much as I would love to have a lot of live viewers, I get a lot of replays. And so this gives, you know, a chance for people to go, oh yeah, I've been meaning to go over there and watch that. You know, the snippet is a way to whet their appetite and say, oh my gosh, I've got to go here. What do you mean he had Brad Feld from Techstars and Seth Godin helping him launch that? I need to know about that. You know, little snippets like that to get everybody going.
I love it. So one thing I'm curious about is the reach of both the live show and the podcast part of it. How has StreamYard helped like just extend your audience and the community that you've built around it?
Well, first of all, you can reach everybody where they are, right? You can go
beauty.
live, even on Twitch. I mean, it just doesn't get any better than that. So I go live on all the locations. And then, so where people are, sometimes they're joining me from Facebook one week, another week they're joining me from YouTube or LinkedIn. It really makes it easier. And then you can get the analytics from those. So you really know what your impressions are, what your reach is, and it just adds value. And you can just feel that ripple effect of your work going out. And again, everybody knows that video is so relatable. So anytime you can do video, you're going to reach more people. And it works that way. So to be able to reach them on all these platforms, I think is a miracle.
I think that's such a good way to look at it. And some people say, you know, I want to start small. I want to start with one. And then other people are like, no, I'm going to start with, you know, touching everything. Is that the advice you'd give to?
Oh, I have to say hi to Al Gettler. So good to see you, Al. Hi. He's a neighbor.
Hi. I can't hang long, but I'm a huge fan of your work over the years. That's so sweet.
Oh, he's a wonderful person in the Boston startup community.
Spell check strikes again, huh?
I know. I'm sorry. Would you please repeat your question? I got a little excited.
Yes, I'm curious for when you're just getting started. I know we have a lot of people in our StreamYard community who are like, we're joining StreamYard because we're starting to become the live streamer pro that you already are. But what's better to start with, you know, focusing all your time and effort on one platform like YouTube and just going all in on that? Or do you think it's
I think
better?
it's just like any startup. You have to know where your customer segment is, right? You have to understand what your distribution channel. If your customers are hanging out on Instagram, that's where you're going to be. So you're going to repurpose things from StreamYard. If they're hanging out on Facebook and that's where you want to start, that is what we say in Boston, wicked smart. But if, you know, or LinkedIn, maybe that's where you need to be. Where are your customers? Go where they are. Mine happen to be everywhere. So it's very easy for me on StreamYard to be able to reach them wherever they're hanging out that day, wherever they're glowing. And but if you're starting off small, and remember, your show has to work for you, not just your audience. It's, again, just like a business. When you're starting a startup in a new business, it has to be serving your needs as well as your customers. So you've got to make sure if just doing Facebook or just doing LinkedIn is how it works best for you, great. And it takes a while to get your sea legs. I always tell people when I started my podcast back in 2012, I had a producer. I went, once a week, and I was scared every single time we hit that record button. I don't even think we were live. But after those 52 weeks, boom, I was on my own over at Blog Talk Radio, and then moved to other platforms, and it got easier. And it's the same thing with live streaming. When you hit that live button, you can feel like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be like a deer stuck in the headlights. But then you keep doing it, you make mistakes, and every time something goes wrong, I go, oh, thank God that's out of the way now. Because you could be anticipating, what if, and all of, oh, sorry, see, there you go. But then it happens, you go, okay, I learned from that. All right, beautiful.
And making it work for you, like you mentioned with choosing the platform or what have you, is a great way to tie into consistency too, like you mentioned before, making it work so that you're able to continue.
Yeah, when I started the show, it was in the evenings, 7 p.m. Yeah, that was not going to work for me. I mean, sure, I can go in and before COVID, go in and network with folks live in the city, one night a week or something. But a show is different. A show has a lot of energy you're putting into it before, during, and after. And I'd be up for hours. So I said, no, I'm going to move it to the middle of the day and just figure it out.
Smart. Did you see your viewership change too much when you moved the show's time?
No, I did not. That's a very good question.
Okay. Wow.
And, I think by then, with everybody being on Zoom calls during the day, people were kind of tired in the evenings too. So it just worked out great. And this way I can also bring in my international audience. So there's a portion that isn't going to be up at 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. But, I have a little flexibility. So when I have my guest on from Singapore, for example, I'm going to go a little earlier for them.
Sure.
Yeah, that makes sense. The Blue Lounge has a question. What is the ideal length for a Q&A stream?
Oh, boy. Everybody talks about that 30-minute, right, as being a great length, but I can't. There's just so much I need to know. I can't keep it under an hour. Founders have a lot of lived experiences. So we talk about, some of my founders were incarcerated. Some were, struggling in other areas. Some had 4 businesses. Everybody's had different lived experiences. So I love to get those stories out of them. And so for me, an hour is ideal. But I've heard, and from a lot of experts, that 30 minutes is really the sweet time, Blue Lounge.
Nice. 30 minutes is how long our show is. I like that.
Yeah.
We have another one from you to English. When editing, do you have any assistant or do you do everything by yourself?
Okay. And this is not good. I do everything myself right now.
Yes.
But that's not how I plan to move forward. I definitely want to have help. I will absolutely outsource the video in a heartbeat. I might just say, look, grab this soundbite right here and make sure you capture that, and boom. And could you make it for IG? Could you do landscape and portrait on that for me? Thank you. And certainly community manager to make sure resources are constantly getting out to everybody. And also, helping me just promote the show. That would be mwah. Yep. And I do have a wonderful woman out of Kenya, Ruth. Oh my gosh, she helps with my Agora Pulse and putting things out into Agora Pulse. But this is how it is now until I get sponsors on board, and then I will fund it that way.
Then the sky is the limit. The Blue Lounge goes live for a couple of hours. Wow, that's a long time. Thanks for
it. Can go by fast. Mia and I will tell you. Mia and I can talk 3 hours and go, what?
Yeah.
Has it been 3 hours?
I love that.
Those live streams are the best live streams, I think, when it can just go on and on for hours.
Oh, you've got to check out my Mia snippets. Some of them are so good. Just go on maybe TikTok or Facebook Reels or something.
Yeah.
She's great. Or IG.
So fun. So I want to jump back to repurposing because I felt like we just ran over it too quickly. And I want to know all the ways you repurpose because we hear this word all the time, but it's where are you doing what?
Well, for me, repurposing is grabbing those 15, 30-second video snippets from the conversation. After every show, I will just do a quick TikTok saying, today in the Startup Life Live show, our guest so-and-so reminded us or shared this Ande Lyons advice, and I'll do a one-liner from the show. But then I'll go and grab parts of the audio. Anybody here use Headliner?
No.
Headliner is great. And for the person who said, what's Filmora? Go check out Headliner. It's free for like your first 8, and you can do a podcast, just audio only, or you can do video, and they provide captions. It's so wonderful to create sound bites to help promote or to help share the show post-show. And so that's a great way to repurpose it. Oh, another way I would delegate something is that I ask 2 questions on every show, which is, when you're feeling founder doubt and feeling really inadequate, what's your mindset hack? How do you shift yourself out of it? And also, how has entrepreneurship served you both personally and professionally? And there's a few others that I ask, like how'd you prove your value prop? I would have someone take that and put it into a blog post or put it onto a Medium post. The 10 best ways to shift your mind, when you're feeling founder doubt, and things like that. You can take questions that you consistently ask in each show and repurpose that into a blog post or into a Medium post. And then the podcast, that's the simplest thing to do. Get on a platform that's going to immediately shoot it out to iTunes and Spotify and iHeartRadio and all the other podcast platforms, because that's going to have link backs. And it's a wonderful, wonderful way. And can I share my exciting news about my podcast?
Yes, please. No better moment.
Gosh. I had a local guy, a startup coach in Boston, who reached out and said, Ande, look, I got to tell you, there's your podcast is, in the top 1% for listen notes. I'm like, say what? And globally? And he said, yeah. So I did a little incognito tab to search my, startup podcasts. And I saw one that said best 60 podcasts. Now, best 60 startup podcast you must tune into in 2022. And I thought, maybe I'm like number 59 or 60, right? I got all excited and I'm scrolling down. I'm number 10. And those of you in the startup world, masters of scale, Reid Hoffman, co-founder of LinkedIn, invested in Netflix and all of them, right? He's so huge. Greylock Capital, he's number 1. You may know Guy Raz from NPR. Yep. He's number 5. How I Built This, that wonderful podcast. And then number 10, me, no production team, nobody editing.
That's amazing. Congratulations. Yes, that's a huge deal.
It's a big deal because I was just quietly, my head down. But, folks, this is it. It's that consistency. And it was rated based on traffic, social media, and domain authority, and freshness.
Oh, freshness. I love it.
I'll take it.
Hey, David Yang from Singapore. We love Singapore. Singapore has a vibrant startup community. Just amazing.
9:30 a.m. here. Oh my gosh.
9:30 a.m. It's tomorrow
13
already.
hours ahead of me. Crazy.
I love landlord advocates. Your energy is obvious, Ande. I'm glad I tuned in.
Thank you. Hug.
So sweet. So I think we've reached the end of our show, but I want to know one more thing, Ande. You've been using StreamYard since it sounds like day 1, literally.
Yeah, I've been watching it. As I say to everybody, I have shoes older than these 2 guys that founded it. But as a startup founder, I have a deep appreciation for Gage and Dan and what they've done. It's huge, folks. Phenomenal.
Oh, that warms my heart. So what I want to know is, what is your favorite feature by far about StreamYard?
I have to say my favorite feature about StreamYard is how they support their users. I mean, come on. They provide continuous education, best how-to videos. There's Melanie, right, with Ask StreamYard. And then there's Christian and Charles with their great advice on how to improve your StreamYard. They bring in the experts, Nick Nims and Roberta Blake and all the biggies to come in and add their StreamYard. I mean, you cannot lose. That's the beauty, is you get so much support.
That is
There
so
you go.
sweet.
Best thing
Really
about
sweet.
StreamYard.
Thank
I'm
you,
so
Andy.
happy to hear that. Yeah,
I
thank
know.
you.
That just warms my heart. I love it.
Yeah,
Well, Andy,
I do too. And I'll just say to everybody, I did hop on to a competitor and I did not like it. I did not like the colors. It was not easy to use. And I tested it out. And I said, nope, StreamYard is clear, clean, easy to use, user friendly,
I
and
love it.
makes my heart sing with joy.
Oh, that's so sweet. And Johnny agrees. StreamYard rocks.
It really does, Johnny.
Well, Andy, you rock too. And thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the StreamYard Spotlight. It was our honor to have you.
Thanks so much for having me,
Thank
everyone.
you. Bye.
And where can our viewers
Oh, yeah.
subscribe?
Oh, and, anywhere you see Ande Lyons, but I am 55 subscribers away from reaching my YouTube 1,000.
Okay, it's
So if
time.
you feel like you want to follow the show, you're just hit the subscribe button. You don't even have to hit notifications. I just would be so honored.
Mhm.
Let's get Andy to 1,000 subscribers, everyone. We can do it.
Aw,
She's
'cause,
very close.
I can have a greater impact on founders around the world when YouTube adds a little wind to your sails.
Absolutely.
And you're so close. 50 is only we almost got 50 people watching.
I'd be so grateful. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dana. Thank you, Kelsey. You
Thanks
two goddesses are
again.
amazing. Thank
This
you
was so
much.
delicious, Andy.
That's right.
Bye, Andy.
Bye.
I love her quotes, like the delicious conversation.
I
Can't wait to have
know.
a delicious conversation.
What a great episode.
And glowing up. No, let's glow.
Let's go.
I love it. It's so creative. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in to another episode of the StreamYard Spotlight Show. Landlord, thank you for all your questions. Good night to you too.
Thanks for
Yuta,
being
thanks
here.
for tuning in. Thanks, Andy. Also, Dana and Kelsey. Trudy, yes. Okay, headed to YouTube. That's what we like to
Woo!
see.
Yes.
Landlord, we're 16 away. Wow, not bad. We closed in on that 1K.
That's great.
All
Yes,
right.
let's get Andy to 1K. The StreamYard community can do it.
We can do it. Well, thank you for tuning in, and thank you again to Andy for joining us. And without further ado, we will see you on the next Spotlight.
See you. Bye.